Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're doing a deep dive, but it's a little different. We're not looking at the usual research papers or articles exactly. Instead, our source today is actually a plan, like an outline for another kind of deep dive.
Yeah, that's right. We're looking at the blueprint, essentially, for a session designed to help people improve their English fluency. And it uses a specific technique called shadowing.
Exactly. So our mission today isn't just to, read the outline. We want to dissect it, understand the structure, see what key bits are in there, and really explore why someone might build a learning experience like this. It's kind of like looking at the blueprints for a learning tool.
Mm-hmm. And you shared the source, as you mentioned, because you were curious about how this kind of structured learning content gets put together, especially for language. Like, how do you turn a method like shadowing into a practical, guided session?
Right. What can we actually learn about designing learning just by looking at someone else's detailed plan? The source itself, it lays out the core idea pretty clearly.
It does. The main concept is using that shadowing technique, which, is basically mimicking speech closely, either right after or almost simultaneously, and combining it with a very relatable real-life English scenarios. The outline calls this a day in the life.
A day in the life. I like that.
Yeah, and the goal stated right in the source is pretty ambitious. Improve listening, build vocabulary, and boost speaking fluency. They literally say they want to make the listener's English sharp, natural, and confident.
Sharp, natural, and confident. Okay, it's a high bar.
Yeah.
Looking at the outline itself, it seems to break this down into a 35-minute session. How's it structured overall?
Yeah, about 35 minutes. And the structure is really logical. It's divided into specific sections that follow a typical day chronologically. It literally walks the learner through, morning, commute, work, relaxing.
That makes a lot of sense for a day in the life thing, doesn't it? It grounds everything. So it goes like intro, warm up, then these daily stages, and then some specific practice towards the end.
Exactly. It provides a kind of natural scaffold. The language isn't just floating out there. It's tied to stuff you might actually do or say.
Okay, let's dive into those sections then. It kicks off with the morning routine. What's happening there?
It gets really specific, which I think is helpful. Examples like waking up at 7 a.m., hitting the snooze button maybe twice it suggests, which feels very real. Brushing teeth, showering, making coffee, checking your phone, those everyday things.
Okay, pretty standard morning stuff. And what's the technique they prescribe here in this first part?
It's very structured at this stage. They suggest short, clear sentences, first spoken slowly, then repeated at normal speed. And the idea is the listener repeats each sentence twice, once mimicking the slow version, once the normal speed.
Right. That slow then fast repetition. That seems like a core shadowing idea. Lets you focus on the sounds first, then the flow.
Precisely. You get the pronunciation and linkage down slowly, then practice the rhythm. The outline also mentions a vocabulary preview for this bit, terms like snooze button, rush, caffeine boost, check notifications. Giving that vocab up front is smart.
Yeah, lowered the barrier. Okay, so after the morning routine, it moves on to commuting. How do they set that scene?
They suggest using ambiance, like background sounds like a subway or traffic noise, just using audio cues to make it feel a bit more immersive, even if it's just listening practice.
That's a nice touch. And the dialogue example they give for this section?
It feels pretty natural, like friends chatting on a train. Stuff like, did you watch that new show last night? Yeah, I binged the whole thing, no regrets. And I almost missed my stop. That binged the whole thing, no regrets line feels very current.
Yeah, definitely. And is there a specific shadowing tip for this part?
There is, and it's interesting. It says to focus specifically on intonation and emotion during this commuting chat. So shifting the focus a bit from just getting the words right to getting the feeling right.
That feels like a crucial step for natural speech, right? Getting the music of the language.
Yeah.
You can say the words perfectly, but flat intonation just sounds off.
Exactly. Capturing that casual chatty tone or excitement or whatever the emotion is, that's key.
Okay, so moving through the day. Section 3 tackles work or school English. Sets the scene in a meeting or classroom.
Yep. And the phrases listed are very context-specific. Things like, let's circle back to that later, or can you take the lead on this task, and I'm running behind on the project. Really functional work-study language.
Very practical. And I see something here called a mini challenge.
Yeah, I like this bit. It explicitly tells the learner to repeat these phrases with emotion, like they're actually in that meeting or class. It pushes the practice beyond just rote repetition.
That's great. It connects back to the intonation point from the commute section,
Yeah.
but applies it to maybe a slightly more formal setting.
Right. It's about delivering those phrases with the appropriate tone. Maybe assertiveness, maybe caution. It addresses real communication needs.
Okay, day's winding down. Section 4 moves into relaxing and small talk. After work, maybe a cafe or home.
Yeah, exactly. The vibe is meant to be casual, friendly. The example dialogue is simple, back and forth stuff. What a long day. Tell me about it. I'm exhausted. Want to grab some dinner later.
Classic wind down chat. And the focus here is,
Again, it emphasizes practicing the tone, making the small talk sound light, relaxed, natural, flowing easily.
that tone is so important for small talk, isn't it? It's almost more important than the specific words sometimes.
Absolutely. Mastering that casual conversational tone is often a big hurdle. It's about connection, not just information exchange. Getting that right makes a huge difference.
Now this next part seems really valuable. Bonus deep dive. Expression breakdown. They suggest picking a couple of phrases from the session to really pull apart.
Yeah, this feels like the outline saying, okay, natural speech has idioms and expressions. Let's deal with those directly. Because you can't always figure them out just from the words.
Like the example they use. Tell me about it. The source explains it means I totally agree or I understand and gives the context. Use it when someone complains about something you've also experienced.
That kind of specific breakdown, meaning and context is gold for learners. Dictionaries often miss that nuance. So isolating idioms, explaining them clearly, giving examples, that's how you help people sound more natural, more fluent. It's a shortcut, almost.
Okay, so after all that structured work and expression breakdown, the outline leads into a real-time shadow challenge. What's this involve?
This sounds like pure immersion. They suggest playing a longer chunk of natural conversation, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and the listener just shadows after each sentence. No slow version, no explanations, just mimicry at speed.
Ah, okay, so like taking the training wheels off everything they practiced earlier.
Basically, yes. It's less guided, more like the real thing. It pushes the learner to process and produce language faster, more automatically, helps bridge that gap between careful practice and just speaking.
Right, building automaticity. Makes sense. And then finally, it wraps up.
Yep, a wrap-up and homework section. It suggests reviewing what was covered, obviously, but also gives practical homework, like trying to use 3 new phrases during your actual day. And it encourages repeating the whole 35-minute session multiple times.
And there's a specific call to action I see here too about recording yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Record yourself shadowing the session now, practice more, then record again later, and listen back to actually hear the improvement over time. That's great for tracking progress and staying motivated.
That self-assessment piece is huge. Learning doesn't stop when the session ends. That active practice and checking in on yourself is key.
Definitely. The outline also mentions a few bonus features that could be added.
Right, things like light background music, different voices or accents for variety, a PDF transcript, maybe a vocabulary list, a clear repeat after me audio cue, cultural notes.
Yeah, all those little extras that can make the learning experience richer, more engaging. They show an awareness of different learning preferences and provide extra support. Turns it from just an exercise into more of a rounded experience.
So stepping back and looking at this whole outline we've walked through, we've really seen a potential structure for teaching practical language skills. Using shadowing, grounded in these daily scenarios, moving from really structured practice to more immersive stuff.
And by breaking down this plan, you get a really clear view of the thought process behind it, the deliberate steps involved in trying to build conversational fluency.
Yeah, the key takeaways seem to be like the power of breaking down something complex language into these relatable daily chunks that day in the life frame.
Absolutely. And the value of scaffolding the practice. Start slow, focus on specifics like pronunciation, then intonation, then gradually ramp up the speed and challenge towards that real-time mimicry. It shows that fluency builds in layers, and as the end bit highlights, you need that reinforcement applying it and reviewing it.
It's quite a detailed plan. This source laid out a methodical approach. Observe, repeat structurally, then practice immersively, all tied to real contexts. Really makes you think, doesn't it? How could that basic framework, breaking down a skill into daily or relatable chunks, practicing parts slowly, then fast, then simulating the real thing, how could that apply to learning other complex skills? Anything from, cooking techniques to learning code. It highlights a potentially universal process for getting good at something practical, moving from just knowing about it to actually doing it.